The annual Academy Awards ceremony is this weekend, so I thought it the perfect occasion to bring you my exclusive interview with Oscar-winning director William Friedkin. He won the Oscar for his 1971 film The French Connection, and he's best remembered for the blockbuster The Exorcist, on which he collaborated with our pal Bill Blatty. I sat down with Mr. Friedkin in Los Angeles recently to talk about his legendary Hollywood career, his experience directing The Exorcist, and what that film is really about, as well as his terrific memoir, The Friedkin Connection. Here's my exclusive interview with William Friedkin. Let me start with, when you go now to a movie theater, what are you looking for?
Intensity, something that will hold me and will make me a part of the story, a part of the characters. I don't see a lot of films now. Most of the films I see that are made today lack any real passion. They're called projects now in Hollywood. They're not referred to as movies, let alone films. They're all projects.
Series.
And well, they're designed, you know, just to attract the largest number of viewers, which is a good thing. But I remember a time when films could be considered a work of art. I don't see that now.
I was stunned to read that the father of The Exorcist, The French Connection, Bug, would say the MGM musical is the spine of the American film. Explain that to me.
The MGM musical, the great musicals of the late 40s and early through the middle 50s, really represent the best that American films have ever made. They were all turned out by a studio, MGM, in a kind of factory manner. They were all vehicles for people like Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. But to me, they're absolute perfection in every way. The photography, the choreography, the music, God knows, was by the people who created the American Songbook. Gershwin, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein. And the dances that's something that's gone from American film. It's not that people wouldn't like them anymore and they've moved on. It's that nobody can do that. There weren't many of them. There might have been maybe a dozen, but to me they still represent as close as one can come to perfection in filmmaking.
I want to talk about your incredible career and take you back to working
Why lower the level?
Well, no, I'm taking it up a notch here. I'm continuing. This is called the continuum. You worked at WGN in Chicago and started doing a lot of live television. What did you learn there that you later utilized and that colored your work to the present day?
Television production is very different from film production. And especially the kind of television programs that I did. They were largely interview programs, panel shows, news programs, sports, a little bit of drama, a little bit of variety, but the techniques are totally different from film techniques. What I learned, the main thing I learned, when I started in the mailroom of a television station, which was WGN, and worked my way up to live television director, was that it's very much of a team effort, and it's all about communication. In order to get what you want, I learned back then in the late 50s and early 60s, you have to be able to communicate your ideas to a crew and a cast before you can communicate to an audience. And what it's all about is communication. The idea of making a film or putting something on television is about communicating with an audience, and that's all it's about. The difference is this, Raymond, but the painter, the writer, the composer are working alone. The film director is working with a 2-ton pencil. You know, literally at times, thousands of people on some films. It's a collaborative effort, whereas the other art forms are not.
You met with Blake Edwards about a script treatment he had of Peter Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
He let you read it, and at that moment, you met someone who would become a major collaborator in a future work, but you were not too hot on the script.
I didn't like the script. The script simply said by Blake Edwards, who I had great admiration for. I thought then and think now he was one of the great American directors. And I was a kid who had done one little film with Sonny and Cher. I told Blake I read his script with great interest and thought it was terrible. And when I said, there was a bunch of people in the room. Many of them were sitting in shadows around this enormous office Blake had at Paramount. And after I'd said to Blake I didn't like the script, I thought it was terrible, and he thanked me for letting him meet an interesting person. And as I was leaving, this guy followed me out of the office on the Paramount lot, and he introduced himself, and he said, "I'm Bill Blatty." And he said, "I'm the guy who wrote that script." And I said, "What?" It says by Blake Edwards. He said, "Well, Blake often does that." He said, "But you know, you were right. I think you were right. The script does need a lot of work. We have all said the same thing to Blake, but he doesn't want to hear that. And I admire you for your honesty." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." We shook hands, and that was it.
That was it.
And 4 years later, he sent me the manuscript of his novel, The Exorcist.
You read The Exorcist in a San Francisco, was it a hotel?
It's a hotel room that overlooked the entire Bay Area.
And you thought what as you sat to read that?
I thought it was really a very powerful and important piece of work. I thought, first of all, this is a great read. You know, this is a wonderful story, very well handled. The characters were well drawn. It was about the mystery of faith, which you don't read too many popular novels coming along that deal with the idea of faith in a way that can be comprehended. And it was a disturbing and powerful story. And I was reluctant to read it. I carried it with me I was on the road doing interviews for The French Connection, which hadn't come out yet, was about to. And the end of my tour was San Francisco, and I opened the book.
Oh, boy.
And I started to read it, canceled my dinner plans, and Blatty included his phone number at the bottom of the letter he sent me, and I called him, and I said, "This is great," and he asked me if I'd be interested in making the film.
And he fought for you.
Yeah, because the studio wanted, they offered it, in fact, before me, to Stanley Kubrick, Arthur Penn, Mike Nichols, Peter Bogdanovich, a guy called Mark Rydell.
Oh, a little guy like Mark Rydell.
And possibly others, I don't know. And they all turned it down, and Blatty held out for me.
Bill Blatty always considered this, the book and the subsequent film, an apostolic work, one that would awaken people to the nature of evil and, by proximity, the nature of good and faith. Did you see it the same way?
I agree with that. But we came at it from a different place. Bill came as a believing Catholic, which he is. And I come to it as someone who believes in the teachings of Jesus Christ, as they're recorded in the New Testament. And I made the film as a believer, not in all the tenets of the church, as Bill does, but in the teachings of Jesus. Yes, that's still my position.
Do you think that's why it has had the staying power and still has the resonance it has, spiritually speaking? You watch that film today, there is no doubt we are seeing the clash of not only good actors and great special effects, but there's something else happening there, that between that film and the viewer.
Yes, it is a film about the constant presence of good and evil in all of our lives, from the beginning of time, Cain and Abel. You know, the constant, the Garden of Eden, the serpent. There has always been a powerful demonic force attempting to undo the work of the Creator. Throughout all of history, there has always been, whether he's called the devil or the adversary or whatever, there has always been this clash of good and evil. It has always been the burden of goodness to triumph over the threat of evil.
Do you see that as a through line that runs through all your work? That notion you just articulated?
Absolutely, yes.
Let's go back, talk about the French Connection. It is, even when you watch it today, it is so gritty. It feels so real. A lot of these scenes, though, particularly the chase, they were real. You didn't get permissions, you didn't get clearances for any of this.
No.
Tell me how that happened, how you did it without getting arrested.
Well, I had the cops on my side because it was a story about police heroism. And every off-duty police officer in New York helped to protect the set. And they were all carrying their badges. And in case I got stopped for breaking every imaginable traffic law and other laws in the making of that film, I had the cops around me to protect me.
There's something you say in the book. There is an outlaw quality in so many of your works, particularly The French Connection, The Exorcist. And what I mean by that is this, and you at the end of your book you write, good and evil coexist in me, in all of us, and I believe it's a constant struggle for our better angels to prevail. This is a theme in all my films and remains a personal struggle. But I've been blessed with a loving, devoted wife and 2 wonderful sons I dearly love, and they constantly help me suppress my darker impulses. In spite of all the gifts God has given me, I still occasionally harbor anger and resentment. My salvation is to channel them into my work. How is anger and resentment channeled into The Exorcist?
Well, first of all, I would take out one word if I was editing that today, and that would be occasionally.
Okay.
Like everyone else I know, I harbor all of the worst qualities of humankind. I believe they are built into our DNA. I've said it in the book. You read it very eloquently. I'm very pleased hearing it because I think it's true.
Yeah.
But I'm drawn to stories on film in which the characters exhibit those qualities. I'm not drawn to comedies or love stories or kind of, mindless film.
Superhero antics.
No, I can't even watch that stuff. I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. Many others do, and that's fine. The film industry is built today on the idea of superheroes and supervillains, and I'm much more interested in human nature. The proper study of mankind is man, and I guess to put it in a simple sentence, the thing that attracts me more than anything about humankind is what Isaiah Berlin called the crooked timber of humanity. I just make films about characters whose natures I think I understand. That's all.
You made a leap to opera directing. Now, this is a very different box of tricks and an entirely different approach. You can control everything in film. The angle, the lighting, the delivery, you can do retakes. Stage is such a different animal. Why did you decide to take on operatic directing?
I've done about 15 operas in about 15 years. I've done some of the great operas ever written in some of the great opera houses of the world. Not all, but it is not all that different.
Really?
The great singers that I've had the privilege of working with want the same thing as good actors. They want a psychological underpinning for their characters and a staging that works. You don't have a camera. That's the main difference, directing opera, but you're still working with the actor-singers in the same way. They want to give a performance. They don't simply want to come out and give a concert. Because the great operas all tell a story and have characters. I can emphasize characters or de-emphasize them by the way I stage them, with someone in the foreground or the background, or the way I light them, the manner in which I set them.
There was a moment in Puccini's great Suor Angelica that you directed where the Angel of Mercy appears in that production.
Yes.
And so many people I know who saw it, not all Catholic, were stunned by that moment. You had a major war with the composer over this.
Not the composer, he's been
dead. The conductor, I'm sorry, that's right.
Almost
Puccini.
100 years, Raymond.
Puccini's a little dusty
Right.
at this point.
I had a big problem with the conductor, James Conlon, who's a highly regarded conductor of opera. And he's the permanent conductor of the LA Opera.
Right.
And he came to me when I was setting up, because in the finale of Suor Angelica asks for the mercy of the Mother of Christ. And in Puccini's libretto, he says, the Mother of Mercy appears. He doesn't say a shadow of the cross goes across the stage, a stained glass window lights up. He says the Mother of Mercy appears. And I decided to make that moment real. And the conductor, Conlon, said to me, listen, he took me aside, he said, you know, I had a Catholic education, and I don't believe that stuff anymore. And he said, I wish you wouldn't do that. And I said, Jim, I don't really want to remind you of this, but this story's not about you, or what you believe or don't believe, or what I believe or don't believe. I said, I know you read music and conduct it beautifully, but can you read a libretto? Can you read where it says here, the Mother of Mercy appears? That's what I'm doing. And after we did it, there was not a dry eye in the house. Men in tuxedos were weeping. Every woman in the house, non-believers. And Placido Domingo, who's the director of the LA Opera Company, said to me, Billy, tonight you have made all of Los Angeles Catholic.
Bill Friedkin's The Friedkin Connection is available at bookstores everywhere.